The rain hit the rusted rooftops like sharp needles from the sky. Cold wind pushed through the ruins of the abandoned outpost. It was quiet, too quiet. It's the kind of quiet that makes even the machines hold their breath. Jack moved through the broken street with slow steps. His coat was old, torn at the edges, soaked by the rain. He didn't care. He had no one to go back to, no one to talk to. He was just another forgotten human scavenger on a forgotten planet. Then he saw it, in the middle of the road, half buried. In the mud and wet leaves was a metal crate. It was dented, black, and humming softly, like something inside was still. Alive, Jack paused. He looked around. Only silence, just broken walls and dead trees. He stepped closer, careful not to make noise. He didn't want trouble. Not again, but the crate pulled at him. Not with sound, but with something deeper. Something strange. There was no lock, just a hatch, and on the side, a glowing symbol he didn't recognize. Alien. He touched the hatch, and it hissed open inside. His breath caught. There she was, an alien girl curled up in the corner of the crate. Her skin was pale blue, her body thin and trembling, her eyes opened slightly, glowing faint purple. And her legs? No, there were no legs, just bandaged stumps, torn and weak. She didn't speak, just stared at him, terrified. Jack stepped back, heart racing. She wasn't human. She wasn't whole. He should have left. He should have closed the crate and walked away. But he didn't. He saw her eyes. Not just fear in them, but pain, deep pain, the kind he knew too well. He bent down and whispered, "Can you hear me?" She flinched, her lips moving, but no words came out. Her fingers clutched a metal chain inside the crate, broken at both ends. A slave. Jack knew what this was. He had seen it before. Aliens being sold, traded, discarded when no longer useful. And this girl, she was thrown away like junk. He looked around again. Still no one. Still silent. If he took her, he'd be in trouble. If someone saw him with her, they'd call him a thief. Or worse, a smuggler. But if he left her, she would die here, in the mud, in the cold, alone. He couldn't do that. Not again. Not after what happened years ago. Jack pulled his coat off and wrapped it around her. She didn't fight, just shivered. "I'll take you somewhere warm," he said. "Don't worry, I won't hurt you." She didn't understand his words, but maybe she understood his voice. Because she didn't resist when he picked her up, she was so light, like carrying a shadow. He took her back through the ruins. Holding her close, rain still falling, wind still howling. His shelter was a broken-down building with a solar panel barely working. But it was dry, and it was his. He laid her down on the old mattress, lit a small heater, and placed his only blanket over her. She was still awake, eyes wide, watching every move he made. Jack tried to give her water, but her hands were too weak. He helped her drink, slowly, carefully. Still, she said nothing. "Who did this to you?" he asked quietly, not expecting an answer. She blinked slowly, then her mouth opened just a little. And a single word came out, broken, cracked, like it hadn't been used in years. "Why?" Jack froze. "Why, save me." Her voice was soft, filled with confusion and pain. Jack sat down beside her, looked into her glowing eyes, and said, "Because I know what it's like to be left behind." She didn't reply, but for the first time, her eyes stopped shaking. The rain outside kept falling. But inside that small, broken shelter, something had changed. To strangers. One with no legs and one with no friends had found each other. Not with words, but with a choice. The choice not to leave, the choice to care. The morning came slow. With weak sunlight slipping through the cracks in the broken roof, the fire had gone cold, but Jack was already awake, sitting in the corner of the room, watching her breathe. The alien girl hadn't moved much during the night. She stayed curled in the blanket, eyes closed. chest rising and falling gently. Jack didn't sleep. He hadn't slept well in years, not since the colony collapsed, not since everyone he knew was gone. He stood up, stretched his sore arms, and walked to the heater, trying to restart it. The solar battery blinked red. Not enough power? Figures. He looked at her again, still unsure what to do. She wasn't like any alien he'd ever seen up close. She was delicate, small-framed, maybe no older than 20 in human years. Her skin shimmered faintly with a metallic blue under the soft light. Her hair, if it could be called that, was silver and thin like silk, spread across the pillow, and her legs, or what was left, were wrapped tightly in blood-stained cloth. He sighed and walked to the drawer, grabbing a protein bar. He unwrapped it and quietly sat beside her. As he opened it, her eyes snapped open. She stared at him, confused but alert. Her hands twitched under the blanket, like she wanted to protect herself but couldn't. Jack held up the bar slowly. "Food," he said gently. "Eat." She blinked, clearly not understanding the word, but the smell of food made her nostrils flare. Jack broke a small piece and held it near her mouth. At first, she turned her head away, unsure. Then, hunger overpowered fear. She took the piece with her lips, chewing slowly. He gave her another, then another, watching as her body stopped shaking just a bit. "You don't speak standard, do you?" Jack asked. She tilted her head slightly and then tried to speak. "Why?" She said softly again, like the night before. "Why you not leave?" Jack looked down, that same question hitting him harder than he expected. He rubbed his neck, sighed, then said, "Because I know what it's like to be thrown away." She stared, not fully understanding, but the words mattered less than the tone. Jack pointed to himself. Jack then pointed to her. Raising an eyebrow, she looked confused, then whispered, "Sorry, sorry," Jack repeated, testing the sound. "That's your name." She nodded weakly, eyes still locked on his face like she was trying to read something invisible there. Jack stood and began tidying the room, trying to think, what now? He had saved her from the crate, but what came next? She couldn't walk, couldn't speak much of his language, and they were alone in a wasteland where help was a myth. And yet, he felt something, a strange sense of purpose he hadn't known in years. After an hour, he returned with water in a clean cup and a small heating pad. He placed it under her blanket, gently making sure it wouldn't burn her skin. She watched him silently, eyes slowly softening. Later, she pointed at the old screen on the wall, the one he used to play short videos of old Earth broadcasts. Jack raised an eyebrow. "You want to see?" She nodded. Slowly, he turned it on, showing her a nature video of forest. Birds flying, rivers flowing. Her eyes widened, a small gasp escaping her lips. "Earth?" she asked, voice barely there. Jack smiled. "Yeah, or what's left of it." For a moment, Sari forgot the pain, forgot her fear, and just stared at the screen like it was the most beautiful thing she'd ever seen. Then she whispered something, in her own language, so soft Jack couldn't catch it. "What did you say?" he asked. She looked at him with tired eyes and said, "First time." "Feel warm?" Jack felt a lump in his throat. He turned away, pretending to check the heater again. The silence between them wasn't heavy, was peaceful now, something shared. Jack knew she was broken, not just her body, but her soul too. And maybe he was too, in a different way. But maybe, just maybe, two broken things could help each other stand. For the next few days, the storm outside continued, but inside the shelter, something gentle was growing. Jack fixed what little he could, patching leaks with scrap metal and pulling broken wires back to life. He wasn't an engineer, but he had learned to survive, and now he was using everything he knew to help someone else for the first time in years. Sari sat quietly most of the time, her body still weak. Her eyes followed him wherever he went, watching every move, learning, trusting. She was no longer afraid of him. Jack noticed small changes in her. She began using simple words, repeating what he said. Fire, she whispered one night as he lit the heater. Yes, he nodded with a smile. Fire. She pointed to herself. Sorry. Then pointed at him. Jack, he laughed, a warm sound that hadn't come out of him in a long time, every morning. He cleaned her wounds carefully, changed her bandages, and whispered gentle words she didn't always understand but always felt when he first tried to make her new legs. It was a disaster. He used broken chair parts and pipe joints, tying them together with wire and tape. They fell apart the moment she tried to touch them. She didn't laugh, didn't mock his attempt. Instead, she reached out and held his hand, weak fingers brushing his skin. Thank you, she whispered. Jack looked at her and smiled. We'll try again. He spent the next day searching the junkyard behind the shelter, looking for anything useful: robot arms, old hover boots, armor pieces from forgotten battles. By sunset, he returned with a heavy bag of scrap. Sari looked at it, her eyes wide. For you. Jack said simply, we'll build better legs. She didn't speak, just nodded with a look in her eyes that said more than words ever could. That night, they worked side by side, Jack cutting metal and wiring parts, Sari offering ideas in soft alien words, drawing shapes in the dust with her fingers. They couldn't speak each other's language fully, but they were creating something together, a project that meant survival, hope, and maybe even healing. On the third night, Sari surprised him. She picked up an old handheld from the table and turned it on. A flickering screen showed a glowing symbol, her language. She pressed a few buttons, then handed it to Jack. Learn, she said with effort. My words. He took it slowly, eyes scanning the interface. The device began speaking basic words, alien to English and back again. A translator. Jack smiled wide. This helps. She smiled too. The first real smile he had seen from her. And it changed her face completely. For the first time, she didn't look weak or broken. She looked beautiful, glowing from inside with a kind of light he hadn't seen in anyone in a long time. The next few days became a quiet routine. Jack, working during the day, Sari guiding him from her mattress, correcting him with the translator. Both of them laughing when he got words wrong, not explode. She giggled once, her voice still soft but brighter. You say connect, not explode. Jack chuckled. Big difference, huh? Very big, she said, smiling with tired eyes one morning. The prototype was ready. Jack carried the mechanical legs over and knelt by her side, ready to try. He asked. Sari stared at the legs, then nodded slowly. Her hands shook as she touched them with Jack's help. They attached the braces and connected the control wires to her spine ports. Jack held her gently and said, Okay, now push with your arms. I've got you. She gritted her teeth, her body trembling, and slowly, she rose. Her feet, metal and unpolished, touched the ground. She took one step, then another. Jack never let go of her. By the fourth step, she collapsed into his arms. But she was laughing. Laughing through tears. I walk, she cried. I walk. Jack didn't know what to say, so he just held her tight. She wasn't just walking, she was healing. And somewhere deep inside, Jack felt like he was healing too. Because for the first time in forever, someone needed him, trusted him, smiled because of him, and that changed everything. The sky was finally clear, but peace didn't last long. Sari had taken 10 steps on her new legs the night before. It wasn't perfect. The metal wobbled, and the support harness still dug into her skin. But she had walked, and she had smiled. Jack hadn't felt that proud in years. But the morning brought a chill that had nothing to do with weather. Jack stood outside the shelter, stretching his arms when he noticed three faint blinking dots in the sky. Far above the horizon, they weren't stars, they were ships. He grabbed the old binoculars and focused. His heart sank. Scout drones, alien ones. And not friendly. He ran back inside, his voice calm but quick. "Sorry, we've got a problem." She looked up from the table where she was carefully repairing a bent joint on her prosthetic. Jack explained, pointing to the sky and showing her a sketch on a dusty pad. She went pale, her voice cracking. "They found me? Who?" Jack asked, "Who are they?" She hesitated, then whispered, "The ones who bought me, they want me back." Jack clenched his fists. "Not happening." Sari shook her head, panic in her eyes. "You don't understand. They don't take back broken property, they destroy it." Jack's jaw tightened. "They'll burn this place down," she said, "and kill you too, to erase the evidence." He turned and started packing supplies into a bag: tools, wires, food packs, the small plasma cutter. "We're not staying," he said. "We'll move, hide deeper in the canyon system." But Sari didn't move. Jack turned back. "Come on." She looked at her metal legs, then at him. Her voice was weak. "Jack, you should leave me." He stepped forward. Furious, "Don't say that. I can't run," she said. "And they'll catch us both. You saved me once, but don't throw away your life." Jack knelt in front of her, eyes burning with anger. "And something deeper. I didn't save you to let them take you back," he said. "You're not just some crate I found in the mud. You're sorry." She looked down, trying to hide her tears. Jack touched her shoulder gently. "You said you felt warm here, didn't you?" She nodded slowly. "Then trust me," he said. "We're going to survive this together." By afternoon, they were packed and ready. Jack helped Sari onto a small repulsor sled built for hauling cargo. It wasn't fast, but it would carry her across rough ground while she used her arms to help steer. As they made their way through the rocky valley, Jack scanned the sky constantly. The drones were closer now. Sari tapped his arm. "If they send ground units, we can't fight them." Jack smiled grimly. "We won't fight them head-on." He led her to a collapsed mine entrance, camouflaged with rocks and vines. It was one of the old escape tunnels from the war, long forgotten and unstable. But it was also hidden inside. It was dark and cold, but they had light and, more importantly, cover. They waited, breath held. That night, the ground trembled slightly, and a high-pitched hum filled the air outside the mine. The drones were here through a small screen. Jack watched the feed from a motion sensor he left behind. Two tall alien figures in black armor stepped into the shelter ruins, scanning the area. One of them kicked over the heater. The other picked up Sari's old bandage wrap and crushed it in his metal glove. "They're looking for signs of life," Sari whispered. "They think we're close." Jack placed a finger on her lips. Motioning for silence, hours passed. The aliens left just before dawn, leaving two drones hovering near the path. Sari leaned her head on Jack's shoulder, whispering, "They'll come back, I know," he said quietly. "But next time, we'll be ready." She looked up at him. "Why are you doing all this? Why risk your life for me?" Jack didn't answer right away. He stared at the soft glow of her eyes in the dark. "Because," he said finally, "you're the first living soul to look at me like I matter." Sari blinked, confused but moved. "You lost your legs," Jack said. "I lost everyone I loved." He looked into the tunnel, deeper into the darkness ahead. "Maybe," he continued, "that's why we found each other." She reached out and took his hand. Not for help, not for safety, just to feel someone else's hand in hers. And in that small act, something powerful formed. Not just survival, but belonging. The sun never really shined on that planet, just hung behind thick clouds, glowing dull and distant. Inside the old mine, Jack and Sari sat quietly, Listening, the air was tense, too still, even for this dead place. Jack placed an old energy cell into the scanner unit and checked the feed again. The two alien drones were still circling the entrance to the canyon. Unmoving, watching, they're waiting, Sari said, her voice tired. They know we're near. Jack nodded, tightening the strap on his old weapon pack. His gear was taut, a mess of mismatched tech-human, alien, and junkyard scraps. But it worked, mostly. I think they'll come in tonight, he said, and they won't knock. Sari looked at her metal legs, then at him. You can still run, she whispered. They might not chase you. Jack turned and gave her a look so sharp it cut through her words. I don't run from family, he said. She blinked, her lips parting slightly. Family? You're all I have, Jack said softly, and I'll be damned if I let them take you. The silence after that wasn't empty, was full, heavy with meaning. That evening, Jack set up traps at the narrow tunnel mouth, old EMP nodes and tripwire lasers powered by makeshift cells. Sari helped, though her movements were still slow. She had practiced walking again and again on her prosthetic legs. Her balance was better, her confidence stronger. As Jack planted the last mine, Sari stood nearby with a pipe in hand, her eyes sharp. You don't have to fight, Jack told her. Yes, she said, standing straighter. I do, just after midnight. The sensors blinked red. Footsteps echoed down the rocks outside. Heavy and controlled, Jack crouched low behind a crate. His blaster drawn, Sari stayed near the wall. Pipe in her hands, heart pounding, the first shadow entered, tall and armored. A glowing mask over its face the moment it stepped onto the pressure plate. The EMP burst, electricity danced through the air. The alien twitched violently and dropped to its knees, but the second one was smarter. It moved around the edge, firing a stun beam into the cave. Jack rolled behind cover, sparks flying. Past his head, he returned fire, his shot hitting the alien's shoulder, making it stumble. Then something unexpected happened. Sari moved. She dashed across the floor, not fast, but steady. She slammed her metal leg into the wounded alien's knee, knocking it down. Jack took the chance, jumped forward, and pressed his blaster to the alien's chest. One shot, it stopped moving. Sari breathed hard, falling to her knees, the fight draining her strength. Jack knelt beside her, grabbing her shoulders. You okay? She nodded, shaking. I stood. You did more than stand, Jack said, grinning. You saved me. She looked at the fallen alien and then back at him. We saved each other, but it wasn't over yet. The drone outside had picked up the fight, and now a signal was being sent calling for reinforcements. Jack pulled Sari up, helping her lean on him. We've got minutes, maybe less. I can walk, she said, breathing deeply. Let's go. They took the back exit of the mine, a tight crawl space that led to a cliffside drop. Below was the riverbed, dry but wide. With rocky cover, they slid down, hitting the ground hard, Jack wincing as his leg twisted under him, but Sari caught his arm. Pulling him back up, they ran, stumbling together. No longer protector and protected, but equals. Behind them, lights filled the sky. New ships dropping into the atmosphere. Sari glanced back, her voice calm but certain. They're not giving up. Jack nodded. Neither are we. By sunrise, they found an old signal tower, broken and leaning, but still holding a weak transmitter. Jack climbed up, opened the dusty control box, and began tuning the system. Sari helped by steadying the cables, translating symbols when needed. Finally, a green light blinked. The emergency beacon was live. Anyone out there? Jack spoke into the mic. This is Jack Havers, ex-colony technician. Broadcasting on old Earth frequencies. I've got a survivor with me, please respond. They waited. Nothing. Then, crackling static turned into a voice. Weak, but real. Jack. Havers. This is Colony Ship Lorien. We received your signal. Sorry covered her mouth in shock. Please. Hold position, the voice said. Rescue inbound in 20 minutes. Jack fell to his knees, laughing. Sorry leaned into him, resting her head on his shoulder. For the first time, they had hope. Not just survival, but escape. Not just hiding, but freedom. They had fought together, stood together, and now they would leave together. Asterisk, the wind had quieted, but inside Jack's chest, a storm of emotions still raged. He stood on the edge of the landing zone. The rescue shuttle now only minutes away. Beside him, Sari sat on a flat rock, the sunlight making her silver blue skin glow like starlight. Her metal legs were scratched and dusty, but she wore them like a queen would wear her crown. Neither of them spoke much. There was too much to feel, and too little time to explain it all. Jack looked up as the sky shimmered. A silver streak broke through the clouds. A shuttle, moving fast. It's here, he said quietly. Sari didn't answer right away. She was staring at the sky too, her hands tight in her lap. Jack, she finally said, what happens now? He looked at her, unsure. We go, we get out of here. They'll help you, maybe even take you back to your people. Sari's eyes lowered. I don't want to go back to them. Jack frowned, but they're your kind, your home. She shook her head. They're the ones who sold me. A heavy silence settled between them. Then she looked up at him with fierce, steady eyes. I don't want to be what I was. I want to be someone new. Jack felt something shift in his chest, something warm, something heavy. Then you start again, he said. Pick a new path, a new name if you want. She nodded slowly. I want that, but only if you come with me. He stared at her, surprised, but deep down, he had hoped she'd say that. I've got nowhere else to be. He replied with a smile, and I don't think I could leave you even if I tried. The shuttle landed with a soft hum, dust kicking up around them. The door opened and two medics stepped out. Armored but not threatening. One looked at Sari's legs and moved to assist her. But she raised her hand and stood on her own. Jack walked beside her. Both of them walking into the shuttle together. Inside, everything was clean. White and glowing, a voice greeted them, soft and calm. Please state your names for record. Jack, answered Jack Havers. Then looked at Sari. She paused, thinking, then said, Sorry. No, not sorry anymore. The medic looked confused. You wish to change your name? She nodded, her voice steady. My name is Lyra now. Jack smiled. The name fitting her like sunlight fits the morning. Welcome aboard, Lyra, the voice said. The shuttle lifted into the sky, leaving behind the dust, the blood, the silence, as they rose higher. Lyra looked out the window, watching the dead planet shrink beneath them. I thought I would die there, she said softly. Alone, broken. Jack leaned back in his seat. Me too. Lyra turned toward him, her expression softer than ever. Before, but I didn't, because you came and you didn't give up. Jack added, you fought. You stood. Their fingers brushed on the seat between them, and neither pulled away. Hours passed, and the shuttle docked with a larger colony vessel in orbit. Medical staff came quickly, offering treatment, clean clothes, proper food. Jack insisted they care for Lyra first. As the doctors worked on cleaning her wounds and upgrading her prosthetics, Jack sat nearby, refusing to rest until she was okay. Later, when they were alone in the recovery room, Lyra turned to him and said, I have no family, no friends, no home. Jack leaned forward. Neither do I. She smiled gently. Then, maybe we make one together, he nodded. Yeah, maybe we start fresh, just you and me. From that day forward, she was no longer sorry. The discarded alien slave. She was Lyra, free and whole. And Jack was no longer just a lonely scavenger. He was her partner, her builder, her protector, her friend. Together, they were two broken pieces that somehow fit perfectly. And though the galaxy was wide and danger always close, they had each other, and sometimes that was all anyone needed to build a new life. 2 months passed, and the stars outside the window no longer felt cold. The Lorian, a colony vessel built for deep space resettlement, was now their temporary home. The rooms were small, the walls silver gray, but there was warmth, Hera kind. Jack hadn't felt in years, and Lyra, she had changed so much. The medics replaced her crude, scrap-built legs with lightweight alloys shaped to match her body. They didn't just look better, they worked better too. She walked with ease now, sometimes even without using the walls for balance. Jack watched her every day, amazed from the broken girl in a metal crate. She had become something strong, graceful, even joyful. She still wore pieces of her old armor, cleaned and reshaped us, a reminder of where she came from. But she had new clothes now too, stitched by her own hands from scraps and donated fabric. She chose colors like sky blue and soft gold, colors that didn't belong to slaves, but to free people. Jack also had changed. He wasn't alone anymore. He had someone to talk to, someone to sit with at meals, someone who waited for him when he returned from fixing ship panels or helping in the hangar. And slowly, people on the ship began to notice him. They didn't just walk past him like before. Now they stopped, smiled, asked how Lyra was doing. They called him the man who saved her. At first, he didn't know how to respond, but Lyra always smiled and said, "He didn't just save me, he gave me a reason to live." One day, a group of settlers invited them both to dinner in the community lounge. Jack hesitated. "I don't know. I'm not good with crowds." Lyra touched his arm gently. "You're not alone anymore, remember?" So he went. They sat with humans, aliens, and hybrids laughing, eating, sharing stories. Jack didn't say much, but he listened, and that was enough. When they left the table, one of the children tugged Jack's sleeve. "Are you the one who built the alien girl new legs?" The child asked, eyes wide. Jack smiled awkwardly. "Yeah, sort of." The child beamed. "That's so cool." Lyra leaned close and whispered, "See? You're not invisible anymore." Later that night, in the quiet of their small cabin, Jack stood by the window, looking out at the stars. "They offered me a place in the repair crew," he said, "a permanent job, real pay." Lyra turned from the mirror where she had been brushing her silken hair, and he glanced back at her. "I said yes, but only if you stay too." Lyra walked to him, her steps soft but confident. She stood beside him, looking out at the stars. "I was offered something too," she said. A voice in the refugee council. "To speak for others like me, ones who were thrown away." Jack looked at her, proud and amazed. "You said yes?" She nodded, "But only if I could bring the one human who never threw me away." They stood there for a moment, just breathing. Then Jack asked quietly, "Do you ever miss who you used to be?" Lyra thought for a while, then shook her head. "No, I miss who I never got to be until I met you." His heart felt heavy, full, beating like it had purpose again. "I had no friends," he said softly. "Not for a long time." Lyra looked at him, eyes shining like the stars outside. "But now," she whispered, "you have one." "No," Jack said, reaching for her hand. "Now, I have everything." She leaned into him, resting her head on his shoulder, her metal fingers curled into his, warm despite the alloy. In the silence, there were no ghosts, no machines, no empty days, only two souls who had every reason to give up but didn't. They weren't just survivors, they were home to each other, and sometimes, in a galaxy full of war, loss, and silence, That was the greatest victory of all.